LeighTDickey.com. What's going on, everybody? Leigh Dickey here. Welcome to another episode of the Beats and Speaks podcast. And today I am on the go. I'm actually at a local park recording this. And today's episode, well, before I get into that, I want to tell you where you can find the Beats and Speaks podcast. You can find the Beats and Speaks podcast on my official website, LeighTDickey.com, iTunes, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcast. The Beats and Speaks podcast is basically a general lifestyle, audio biography, entertainment, anything interesting that comes across the mind of yours truly, Leigh Dickey type of show. So if I find anything interesting and or want to tell you a story just off the top of my head, I'm going to tell it right here, right now on the Beats and Speaks podcast. But the Beats and Speaks podcast, again, is available on iTunes, Spotify, my official website, LeighTDickey.com. And new episodes are available every Friday at midnight Eastern time. Now, today's episode is basically why I choose to podcast on the go, or why I like to podcast on the go. And the simple reason is, with Canada's weather, or Toronto's weather, because this is where this show comes from, directly to your ears, this is where you get your weekly dose of ear honey, so nice and so sweet. You get a dose of me every single week. So, the main reason for podcasting on the go is basically, I don't like being chained to a desk, right? I really don't like being chained to a desk, and I'd much rather be outside in days like this. It's nice and sunny. It's not too hot. There's a breeze going. I mean, it's nearly 6 o'clock in the evening here Eastern time in Toronto. And I really just, it's not that I don't mind being chained to my desk, but I don't want to be chained to my desk while I record. And if I could find a mobile setup that works, like the one I have here and the one that will be featured in the thumbnail for this show, I'm happy, that I could be out and about. I mean, if you hear background noise, it's because my back is facing the road, but I'm sure the mic will. Basically, this setup, it works in the way that you can hear my voice, but yes, you will get background noise, and it's fine. I just don't like being chained to a desk. I understand that there are people probably listening to this that have a 9-to-5, and you're at a desk and your boss is probably over your shoulder while you have me on your speakers, or you have me playing through a Bluetooth device on Spotify or whatever, and they're like, I need this done and I need it within the next 5 minutes. I don't like that. I don't like the office environment. I don't like the suit, tie, must have this professional look. There are so many different ways to be professional these days, where I was just, I'm not a fan of must wear a suit and tie, must be all done up and dressed to the nines every single day of the year, because it's not me. I went to Catholic school from about the 2nd grade all through 12, and then I worked corporate jobs right out of high school where you're wearing a suit and tie every day. So after 20 years of doing that, I don't want to do it. Okay? So that's another reason as to why podcasting on the go. And again, don't want to be chained to a desk. And where I record in my house is stuffy anyway. But this was another avenue in which I could legitimately even walk out of my room within my house and sit at the dining table and just talk, right? And tell you guys a story. I mean, I love podcasting. I love telling you guys these stories, but I also don't like to be chained to things. I don't like to feel like I have the proverbial pair of handcuffs to a desk. It shouldn't always be that way. And now you don't need the setup that I have, which is basically a dynamic mic within XLR, terminating into a 3.5 millimeter jack into my phone to record a podcast. I mean, I've done podcasts where it's just my headset, which has a mic on it, into my phone, and we've talked for 20 minutes. But this one I think is great because it's a simple setup. I've got a weighted mic stand, the dynamic mic, which I think is an Apex 850 with a windscreen on it, and I've also got like I said, the XLR cable, which is about 3 feet long, going into my phone via the 3.5 millimeter headphone jack. But I mean, this is perfect for me. The summers are short enough as it is, because we all know in Canada, winter tends to show up and not leave for about 90% of the year, and it's just cold. So I want to take advantage of these good days and the warm days and the short sleeve weather and wearing shorts and sunscreen type of days as I can. I mean, like, you know, I could be sitting in my room for 20 minutes talking to you, but I'd much rather be out and about, just on my daily walk. And yes, it is true. Like, it's kind of weird if you think about it. Like, I'm carrying a dynamic microphone, an XLR cable, a mic stand, and like, obviously I've got my phone on me, but I basically have my podcasting rig or my podcasting setup all in my bag, all on the go. Yes, the mic stand is probably the heaviest part, but you know, the mic has to stay put. It has to stay in place. So having that weighted mic stand is key. I don't think I could hold the mic for 20 minutes as I talk to you guys. The problem with that being, like, my shoulders would probably get sore after maybe 5 minutes or whatever, and like my rotator cuff would probably go. But this is just, it's one of those things. I like to be outside. I mean, granted, I'm not that outdoorsy. Like, you're not going to get me going hunting or rock climbing, maybe, because that's something I've always wanted to try. But like, I'm not all that like, let's go into the woods. It's just, let's get out of the house, and I feel the itch to talk and tell a story. So let's get on here. Let's set up a podcast. I was actually like browsing like various podcast forums and Facebook groups, asking, you know, how could I simplify this setup? I found the XLR into 3.5 millimeter cable for very cheap. I think it was like, I don't know, $12 or $13. I had everything else, the phone, the stand, and the mic, just because they're all part of my podcast or my studio setup at home, or recording setup rather. It's not an actual like recording studio, not a full-on studio, but it's just a corner of my room where I have a mic arm and XLR cables, and going into an interface into my laptop, and this just works. You know, it's simple, it's convenient. If I want to talk like I am right now, I can do it. And another thing is, like, as I look around, there are people here, and I did this on my Monday show, Pinfall, a pro wrestling podcast. So if you want to hear more of an audio example about how that went, you can listen to that show. I'll link it in the show notes. But the thing about being out here, yeah, you're going to get some looks. I'm sure, like, when I recorded Monday's show last week, people were looking at me like, you know, I had rabbit ears and what have you. I was getting all sorts of looks, because how often do you see a guy at a picnic table, which is where I am right now, with a whole, like, a mic stand, dynamic microphone, XLR cable, and like recording into your phone? Like, that's not something you see every day, and I understand that, but it's all about thinking outside the box for me. Like, if I don't want to be sitting at home all day trying to record these episodes, then is there a way I can get outside on days like this where it's nice and sunny, there's a breeze? I mean, we're in August, and you just need to take, in my opinion, everybody needs to take advantage of the good weather while they have it. I mean, to the folks that live in Arizona, Florida, California, and basically most of the parts of the world, and even like other parts of the world when you're on the other side of the world. So if it's tomorrow, basically when it's 6 p.m. here, so if it's 6 a.m. where you are, and you're living in a part of the world where winter doesn't exist and cold is a thing that, is not in your everyday lexicon, then I am jealous. Okay, I'm envious of you people when you've got like dry heat. Nevada's another state too. I mean, I'd like to move to any part of the world where winter does not exist. And granted, it's got to be within North America, but anywhere where winter doesn't exist, I would go to. If it's in North America, plus, I would go. Just Nevada, Arizona, Florida, California. I understand that in the mountainous regions you're gonna get like snow, like probably in Big Bear, California you might, but with Canada and the way the weather is, I understand that I can't do this all year round, so I'm gonna take advantage of it while I can, and this is another reason as to why I basically want a podcast on the go. It's just, I don't like being inside all day. Who likes being trapped inside, whether it's in your room, in an office, or whatever, or even like if you're sitting at a dinner table, right? Like if I had company right now, we could do a 2-person podcast and it wouldn't just be me, telling you why I would like to podcast on the go or why I do like to podcast on the go. That would be perfect, but it is just me, and all I have are like my eyeballs, and as I see people around me here, some are walking through the paths in this park. Some are sitting on benches. Myself, I'm sitting on at a picnic table. Somebody's doing some exercise and getting a workout in, which is good. You can always work out anywhere. There are always things to do, and there are always ways to get around like your setup. I don't always have to be at home when I record these episodes. And with a setup like the one that I have, which is relatively inexpensive, I don't have to be at home all the time. I can be out here. I can talk to you guys through the phone. And that's basically why I like to podcast on the go. I don't like to be chained to a desk, and I'd like to take advantage of the warm weather while we have it here in Toronto, Canada, because it doesn't last very long. We get, 8 weeks is like 5 minutes here. So I'm going to take advantage of as much as I can. And those are basically the main reasons as to why I choose to podcast on the go. I don't like to have to stay in one place all that much. I think a friend of mine who used to live not that far from where I am right now, I think she lived right behind the park that I'm sitting at right now, or this governmental building, or whatever you want to call it. This sort of like governmental building, parkette thing. She lives used to live right behind it, and she's like, well, you're sort of transient. You're sort of like a nomad. People know who you are, but you come in for about 5 or 10 minutes, you stop and talk to the people you want to stop and talk to, and then you sort of move on. And I do that daily, pretty regularly anyway. But I just, with the summer being the way it is and for it not lasting very long, I just want to take advantage of it. And I also don't want to, the way that my production schedule works, or the way that I have it set up, is I don't want to have to record late at night, because I record late at night, or at least when I started getting back into the Beats and Speaks podcast, and when I launched Pinfall, a pro wrestling podcast, I was up late, like really late, to the point where it got to be about 3 in the morning, where I would record and do all the post-production all in one shot. So that would take me like 3 hours, 2 to 3 hours, because it's get the episode recorded, now you do all your post-production, and then you basically play the waiting game, because it's, all right, so I have the post-production done. Now that we have it recorded, we have to get everything done in post, which is basically the mixing and the mastering for me. And as simple as it sounds, and it is, it's just it's time consuming, and it takes a while. So I'm up like till 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, and I don't want to be up till 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. And that's another thing that this setup here affords me, this mobile setup anyway. where I can record the episode with the microphone and the cable going directly into my phone on the mic stand and what have you. And I have a copy of it. I can drop it. I can basically copy it to like Dropbox or share it with Dropbox, and then, or whatever. I can share it in the cloud and then have a copy of it on my computer, or, I'm always going to have a backup on my phone. So I always have the raw audio there anyway. That way I'm not always sitting at a desk, and it's not that I don't like things to be connected, but I like the process to be as easy as I can possibly get it. So this is probably one of the easier processes that I can get. And I also like to, and I've said this several times, but I don't like to be chained to a desk, right? So with this setup as well, not only can I take it to a park or a governmental garden parquet thing, whatever this place is, and sit and record through my phone, I can also just walk maybe, 5 feet, maybe less than 5 feet, maybe 3 to 5 feet or whatever it is, the distance from my bedroom to my dining table. And I also like to have something on in the background, or, well, not have something on, but I have something visual on as I record. And with my, setup in my room the way it is, I can't always have that. So the fact that I can go out to my living room / dining room area where the TV is, and obviously the dining table and what have you, I can throw something on. I can have the volume on that really, really low where the mic won't pick it up, and I can tell you guys a story, but I can also have something to visually look at that will entertain me as well. Not that I don't find my voice all that entertaining, but not that I'm not entertained by telling you guys a story. I'd like to have something a little more stimuli. It's like, okay, I can throw something on, like an episode of, a game show, an episode of one of my favorite TV shows, and it makes the process a whole lot easier for me. But that's mainly why I like to podcast on the go, and I figured I would tell you guys that story right here and right now as I had the time. And I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the Beats and Speaks podcast. Reminder, the Beats and Speaks podcast releases new episodes every Friday at midnight Eastern time, and the Beats and Speaks podcast is available on LeighTDickey.com, my official website, iTunes, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. Remember to comment, like, share, and subscribe, and you can find the Beats and Speaks podcast and yours truly, Leigh Dickey, on YouTube by searching for Leigh Dickey TV. That is LeighDickey TV. So you get all the audio versions and the video versions there. I may start chopping this stuff up into short clips that will make it easier for you guys to digest. I'm tripping all over my words this afternoon, but there it is. This week's episode of the Beats and Speaks podcast. I hope you enjoyed it, and please comment, like, share, and subscribe. And of course, as always, we will see you all and talk to you all next Friday at midnight Eastern time for a new episode of the Beats and Speaks podcast. And if you're into professional wrestling as well, I host a professional wrestling podcast, Pinfall, a pro wrestling podcast, which releases every Monday at midnight Eastern time, also on iTunes, Spotify, and LeighTDickey.com. All right, thanks again for listening. We'll talk to you all next Friday for a new episode of the Beats and Speaks podcast. But you can also subscribe to Leigh Dickey TV, and I can find you there. So, with all that said, I'm signing off. Leigh Dickey, for everything with my name on it, the Beats and Speaks podcast, Pinfall, a pro wrestling podcast, and Leigh Dickey TV. Leigh Dickey, signing off. Peace. LeighTDickey.com